SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
රින් වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 180යි.
Tonight, how to get back on the feet. A World Bank expert lights the way for Sri Lanka's post-pandemic growth.
If you don't unleash that potential, if you don't integrate the informal people into markets, you will not achieve long-term growth.
Price of piecemeal culture. As the country waits in anticipation of a CPC fuel price hike, the advice for the government is don't do it.
If we suddenly decide and fluctuate prices according to the world market, people will not accept it.
We can't come up with immediate price changes as per the global market changes.
200,000 metric tons per year. A 12.8 billion rupee Polish investment proposed for an organic fertilizer manufacturing facility.
We are planned to have 5 production centers in the country. The production that is going to be geared for this is for organic compound fertilizers for the tea and other crop sectors.
Phased reopening. Universities given the green light to restart from today. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 26th of October, 2021.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Mohammed Kekanai. Now then, the government today insisted that it has not changed its foreign policy and rejected the claim that the country is now moving away from China and is tilting towards India. Speaking at the weekly Cabinet media briefing, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana noted that the ongoing fertilizer saga in China does not affect the friendship between the two countries.
During the Cabinet media briefing today, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana was asked whether there is a shift in the government's foreign policy with the country tilting towards India. The Ministry of Agriculture recently rejected a consignment of Chinese organic fertilizer, deeming it unfit for use. However, it did go ahead with the purchase of nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer from India, and in doing so, the ministry said it saved over 20 billion rupees compared to urea imports.
Foreign policy-wise, we are friends of all, enemies of none, and we are non-aligned country. So there's no shift in relation to the relationship between Sri Lanka and China. Historically, we have remained very good friends and we have a very strong relationship, but it doesn't mean that we have to import something of lower quality, substandard product to Sri Lanka because of that friendship. So that's why we have categorically stated the fact that we have found out the fertilizer that were to be imported to the country were of low quality. That's why the government has rejected that. We can very clearly explain our position to Chinese government.
Minister Patirana was also questioned about the imports of chemical pesticides and weedicides.
In relation to weedicides and pesticides, the Secretary of the Agriculture Ministry take decisions. There are certain chemicals that we need to import to control certain diseases. Actually, when it comes to the organic fertilizer production, we have a decent background and we are quite hopeful that we should be able to fulfill the requirement during next 1 year's time down the line. But we have a question mark in relation to weedicides and pesticides. So for the time being, the Secretary of the Agriculture Ministry is vested with that power to import the required quantity as and when necessary.
Another topic broached during today's media briefing was the halt of vehicle imports. It was put to Minister Patirana that around 50,000 people who are directly and indirectly involved in vehicle imports have lost their jobs.
We acknowledge the fact that some of the people have lost their job and also their business have been affected because of the fact that we have curtailed importation of vehicles to this country. So that was basically due to the foreign currency deficiency we encountered during last months. But as at now, there is no shift from the policy decision we have taken. But on futuristic basis, if our reserves go up, if we have sufficient dollar income, we should be able to reverse that decision. Until such time, central bank would announce a different scheme in time to come. That is for them to pay the bill or the letter of credit to be opened and the dollars to be sent from another source, not from Sri Lanka, given the backdrop of this difficulty that we encounter. But hopefully things will come back to normalcy after 3 to 4 months' time. That's the expectation of the government.
In the meantime, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved the proposal to enter into an agreement with the Kuwait Fund for Arabic Economic Development to obtain approximately $33.2 million for the construction of a medical faculty for the University of Moratuwa. The Cabinet also gave the green light to allocate land for the establishment of a container goods inspection centre at Keravalapitia. A 19-acre, 9.2 perch land belonging to the Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation near the Keravalapitia interchange has been identified as the most suitable location to set up the proposed inspection centre. The go-ahead has also been given to obtain a geographical indication for Ceylon tea, which will protect the product from misuse or imitation of the registered name and protects the customer by guaranteeing the true origin of the product. The amendment of the Debt Conciliation Ordinance is also approved by the Cabinet. In a bid to protect the rights of the debt-ridden people, a preliminary bill has been drafted by the Advisory Committee to review the Debt Conciliation Ordinance appointed by the Minister of Justice. The Debt Conciliation Ordinance will be amended based on the said preliminary bill.
Big 3.
Now then, the Colombo Commercial Fertilizers Limited entered into a memorandum of understanding with a Polish venture to establish preliminary parameters to form a joint venture of an organic fertilizer manufacturing facility in Sri Lanka. With a total investment of 10.8 billion rupees, the manufacturing facility will spread across 4 plants and will boast an annual production capacity of 200,000 metric tons of organic fertilizer.
We are planned to have 5 production centers in the country. The production that is going to be geared for this is for organic compound fertilizer for the tea and other crop sectors. So that's a huge advantages as far as the country and this organization is concerned. The other plan is to have a production facility which will convert all kinds of raw materials that we'll find in this country. Now these raw materials differ from area to area. We have identified types of raw materials in Monragala and in western region and in Anuradhapura and also Padavisripur and Trincomalee. But we are also trying to get specialized types of raw materials which are not being used right now, and it will end up with a very high quality proven organic products. This means that we are not going to import any raw materials from anywhere in the world. Raw materials will be generated from this country. The President has taken a bold decision to convert this chemical picture to organic fertilizer and also to maintain the greenery and the sustainable agro development in this country. So this is exactly what we are going to do here. We are planning to produce high-end organic compounds with very high NPK values using the local raw materials.
Now then, the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited has obtained another interim order from the Colombo Commercial High Court against the Chinese company which shipped fertilizer containing harmful bacteria to Sri Lanka, its local agent and the People's Bank. In a media communique today, the President's Media Division said that this court order prevents the payment to the Chinese firm on letter of credit. The CFC first obtained an enjoining order last Friday against the Chinese firm in question, preventing the People's Bank from making any payment under a letter of credit opened in favour of the Chinese company, Qingdao Seawind Biotech Group Company Limited. The previous court order was also issued preventing the Chinese company and its local agent from receiving any payment under the letter of credit. In the wake of global fuel prices hitting fresh highs and the LIOC hiking their petrol and diesel prices, members of the public are waiting in anticipation of a CPC price hike. Though the government laments that global prices are putting pressure on CPC to up prices, experts say doing so right now will not be opportune.
Fuel is one of the most crucial commodities that guarantees the evolution of any economy and any industry, and therefore price fluctuation of fuel remains a concern. Throughout history, governments have been toppled over fuel prices. Sri Lanka is no exception. After maintaining status quo of fuel prices for 20 months, the government increased prices in June in line with global trends as fuel prices soared in the international market. Addressing a media briefing just hours before the hike, Minister of Energy Udayagam Manpila said that the government is finding it difficult to bear the annual cost of $3 billion to import fuel, adding that some burden should be transferred to the members of the public.
We can't do anything about it, no? The government decides, they have this thing to pay, cost of living is going up, can't help it.
To put things into perspective, we need to take a look at the global fuel prices. The benchmark Brent crude costs over $80 per barrel. The $85.73 price is a 3-year high for Brent. The average price of a gallon of diesel in the United States is $3.61, which translates to 190 rupees per litre. In Sri Lanka, auto diesel and super diesel are being sold at 111 and 144 rupees respectively. Even in states of the US where fuel prices are at the lowest, the prices are still higher than in Sri Lanka. In India, fuel prices were hiked 5 times in a row during the past week alone, and the price of petrol in Delhi is almost double that of Colombo. Speaking on the continuous fuel price hike across India, Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri had this to say.
This is an international issue, the international price. Global economic recovery can be undermined if energy prices remain high. That is not only true of developing countries like India, but also the other industrial democracies.
Chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals, Uwais Mohammed, is of the view that despite the price hike, Sri Lanka is still way behind the global prices and is continuing to incur losses.
If you take today, our diesel price has to go up by 40 to 45 rupees and petrol has to go by another 25 rupees. Actually, as a company, we make a loss. Diesel about per litre 35 rupees, petrol about 20 rupees.
However, there is another problem that does not meet the eye. In the wake of the rising global oil prices, Lanka IOC, the subsidiary of Indian Oil Corporation in Sri Lanka, has hiked the retail prices of both petrol and diesel by 5 rupees per litre, as a result of which the demand for CPC fuel increased to a degree which may be a curse than a blessing. With CPC already incurring around a 20 rupee and a 35 rupee loss per litre from petrol and diesel, the high demand is inadvertently putting CPC at a greater loss. Meanwhile, weighing in on the matter, former Minister of Petroleum Chandima Veerakuri spoke against changing policy just yet.
In case of oil prices, if we suddenly decide as a policy and state that we will fluctuate prices according to the world market fluctuations, people will not accept it. Now the prices are high, invariably the government will want a price hike. That is how the general public will look at it. Because few months ago, world oil prices were remarkably down. During that period, the government very clearly stated that the price difference will be made use of for future situations when prices go up. Such profit will be kept to be given as a benefit. Government could not give the benefit to the people. Neither are we in a position to give that benefit as it was promised during that time.
Even for the country to move towards a mechanism where global prices dictate local prices, the island's storage capacity is a stumbling block.
When it comes to maintaining the global price locally, there are key components that we need to consider. When it comes to other countries, they normally possess almost 3 months of stock. But unfortunately in Sri Lanka, we have only maximum of 23 days of stock. Because of that, we can't come up with immediate price changes as per the global market changes.
Sri Lanka, as a practice, has always depended on price controls to manage the affordability of goods, including fuel, irrespective of global price fluctuations. This has largely brought nothing but heavy losses for successive governments. Professor Sirimal Aberatna, the head of economics at the University of Colombo, is not in favour of having any price controls in place.
Price controls never work for a country. It has never worked even for this country. We have a long history of price controls. It has done a lot of adverse things in this economy, and it has never sought out our supply shortages, but it has eliminated the quality goods from the market, and it has created black market for quality goods. It's a politically correct, feel-good policy. Now you might think that, okay, eliminating price controls is a good thing that we have done, and so that we can feel good about it. No, I don't say that either. If you select things ad hoc and piecemeal manner, it's not going to work either. If it had come as part of an overall reform package, I would have been happier. Because it didn't come in that way, obviously, the negative implications of this removal of price controls, as we right now experience it in the same way, is going to be enormous, particularly for the low-income groups.
Whether it's a knee-jerk reaction or long-term policy decision, if the country is to address this situation, what is apparent is that lots will have to be done to change the mindset of the people so they understand the consequences of living beyond their means.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay with us.
මිලියන 18.8 නිවස ලක්ෂ 5ක් ගෙවා දැන්ම වෙන් කරවා ගන්න මල්බෙරි රෙසිඩන්ස්.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the destination of central bank governor has been given similar status as that of a cabinet minister. Now, in the table of presidents, the CBSL governor is listed under the 5th rank among leaders of the opposition, cabinet ministers and field marshal. Central Bank Governor Ajit Nimad Cabral mooted such a change prior to taking office last month. The University Grants Commission gave the green light to reopen the country's universities on any date from today. However, only students who have opted for double vaccination will be allowed into universities. But as far as sitting for the advanced level examination is concerned, not being vaccinated is no problem.
In a backdrop where the Director General of Health Services has approved the reopening of universities and education institutes with the adherence of health and safety protocols, the University Grants Commission today gave the green light to reopen the country's universities on any date from today.
ගිය සතියේ සිකුරාදා විශේෂ සාකච්ඡාවක් පැවැත්වුණා කෙසේද විශ්වවිද්‍යාල නැවත ආරම්භ කරන්නේ යන්න පිළිබඳව. විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ආරම්භ කරන්නේ කාණ්ඩ වශයෙන් මුලින්ම විභාග සහ ප්‍රායෝගික පුහුණු කටයුතු සඳහා මූලිකත්වයක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. උපකුලපතිවරුන්ට වගකීම පවරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පීඨවල කුමන කණ්ඩායමද මූලික වටේදී විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට කැදවන්නේ කියලා තීරණය ගැනීම සඳහා. හැබැයි මේ තීරණයට යටත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ වෛද්‍ය විද්‍යාල සහ සමසෞඛ්‍ය විද්‍යාපීඨ. විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට කැදවන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ දරුවෝ එන්නත් දෙකම ලබාගෙන දෙවෙනි එන්නත ලබාගෙන සති දෙකක් ගත වෙච්ච දරුවෝ පමණයි. අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඔවුන්ට විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ඔවුන් ලබාගත් ඒ එන්නත් වල විස්තර කාඩ්පත් ලබා දීමට සිදු වෙනවා.
As for the country's vaccination drive, students aged between 16 and 19 years are eligible to get the jab. Today, the vaccination for students in international schools also began in Colombo.
2001 ඔක්තෝබර් මාස 21 වෙනිදා සිට 2005 ඔක්තෝබර් 22 වෙනිදා දක්වා උපත ලැබූ සියලුම දුවදරුවන් මේ එන්නත් කරණයට භාජනය කිරීම සිදු කරනවා.
Meanwhile, with the advanced level examinations for the year 2021 around the corner, there are cases reported where students have refused the vaccine. When this matter was taken at a media briefing held at the Ministry of Health today, the ministry officials were quizzed whether the non-vaccination will be a barrier in sitting for the advanced level examination.
කවුරු කෙනෙක් වැක්සිනේට් කරගත්තේ නැත්නම් අපි විභාගයට ඒක බාධාවක් කරන්න අපි කිසිම මේකක් නැහැ.
කෙනෙකුට තියෙනවා තමන්ගේ ජීවිතය ගැන අයිතියක්. හැබැයි ඔහුට අයිතියක් නැහැ තව කෙනෙක්ගේ ජීවිතය අනතුරට ලක් කරන්න. දැන් යුරෝපයේ වැක්සින් දෙකම නැති අයට පොදු ස්ථාන තහනම් කරලා නීතියක් ගෙනත් අපිටත් සිද්ධ වෙනවා බහුතරයකගේ යහපත පිණිස යම් යම් තීන්දුව ගන්න ඉදිරියේ.
As of last evening, 15,61,354 persons had obtained a single dose of a COVID-19 vaccine in the island. Out of that number, 13,201,141 had been inoculated with both doses, meaning that 61% of the country's total population have received full vaccination against COVID-19.
The Airport and Aviation Services Lanka Private Limited officially introduced an online health declaration system today to ease the passenger handling process at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka. The prime objective of introducing this system is to reduce the usage of physical form filling and encourage the passengers to opt for an online platform, reducing the physical contact and passenger processing time. The arriving passengers first need to fill the web-based health declaration form, which is available at the AASL official website www.airport.lk. Then the vaccination card and PCR test report done within 72 hours prior to departure needs to be attached to the health declaration form. Afterwards, the passenger needs to submit the form online. Upon submission, the passenger will receive the facility to capture a QR code and will also receive an email with that QR code. The health officials at the airport will then receive the passenger information before the passenger arrives at the airport, and they will review the information. The passengers who have submitted their health declaration forms online can then submit the QR code either in the email or in the mobile device upon arrival for scanning at the health declaration counter. We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, a World Bank expert calls on Sri Lanka to focus on the services sector in the new normal, saying that it can be a vital driver for the island's productivity. Speaking at a webinar on the impact of the pandemic on South Asian economies, Chief Economist for the South Asian region of the World Bank, Hans Timmer, also noted that unleashing the potential of Sri Lanka's informal sector too can lead to economic growth during the post-pandemic era.
After this crisis, you should expect a new normal. And the point that we are making is that part of that new normal is a significant increase in the importance of the services sector. Our argument is that now services-led growth is a possibility for Sri Lanka. That's partly because trends that were already happening, but they were especially accelerated during this crisis, where people started relying more on services and especially remote services. Services-led growth is a possibility, which is very different from the standard development model of manufacturing-led growth. Why is it now possible? The reason is that services can now generate significant export revenues, either by themselves or through other sectors, because increasingly services play an important role in, for example, manufacturing. We argue that services are now probably the most important driver of productivity across economies, not only because within the services sector you have a lot of productivity increase, but when other sectors are using services, the new service economy, their productivity is increasing also. And then finally, services generate a lot of jobs. They've always done that, but increasingly you see that within the services sector, you see an upgrading of the skills, especially by training on the job.
Speaking further, Chief Economist for the South Asian region of the World Bank, Hans Timmer, also explained the importance of unleashing the potential of Sri Lanka's informal sector that can benefit the country's economic growth.
Don't expect that the economy will go back to a normal situation. Then as a result of that, also for good reasons, unprecedented policy measures to deal with the crisis, but those measures have put in place have reached their limits, and you are struggling now with high debt to GDP ratios. You're struggling with vulnerabilities in the financial sector, and so you have to shift away from those relief efforts. And then very importantly, you have to prepare for all those new opportunities that are there. And the point I want to leave is that it's not only important to focus on the big companies in the formal sector that in the past were responsible for growth. It is important to focus on the informal sector, which is very large also in Sri Lanka, to unleash a new potential that they have. Because if you don't unleash that potential, if you don't integrate the informal people into markets, give them access to credit and create opportunities to increase productivity, you will not achieve long-term growth.
Now, once again, the all-share price index closed above the 10,000 mark by gaining 80.24 points to end at 10,124.04. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,659.73, following a gain of 15 points. Now, market turnover was 6.7 billion rupees. Here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
The market seems to be growing from strength to strength as the ASPI crossed the 10,100 mark today to close at 10,127 points, up by overall. We are seeing strong turnover levels also coming in, so we are seeing the retail segment getting activated again, growing from strength to strength. So 6.7 billion of turnover was recorded and the number of transactions was 46,000, illustrating that the activity in the market is significantly increasing. So we saw some interest coming into the construction and building material counters. In addition to that, rest of the retail favorite counters were again active and was instrumental in driving the market at the moment.
The rupee, meanwhile, remained unchanged at 202.99 cents against the US dollar today. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.